So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, Magnus, Esmee and I represent Team 15 of the United Nations Global Compact Young Professional Program in the Netherlands. 1 year ago, we met during the kickoff of our program with 14 colleagues or team members, so to say, from other organizations as well. It's a leadership program in which we identified a topic and also did research into a topic that lies close to our hearts. We decided to focus on stakeholder inclusion in organizational decision-making and discover how a societal council can contribute to this. So today also, is a special moment for us because today also marks the end of our journey. And during this webinar today, we are launching our white paper that we have been working on together with the rest of the team last year. So that's very exciting. After the presentation, we will also have an in-depth discussion with our expert speakers, which I already briefly introduced before. But again, we have Rafaela Arnone on the table. Rafaela works at ABN AMRO as Senior Financial Risk Specialist. And next to that, she's also Stakeholder Manager of the Future Generations Board at ABN AMRO. And Herman Mulder. Herman Mulder is currently the chair of the Impact Economy Foundation, the chair of the True Price Foundation, and the chair of SDG Netherlands Foundation. And among others, Herman is also the former board member and former chair of the Global Reporting Initiative. Okay, meanwhile, we can see that the results of the poll have come in as well. Well, we can see that most of the people dialing in today indicated that their organization already engages with stakeholders, but more in an ad hoc and informal way. And that there are no organizations on the call today with already a stable societal council that includes silent stakeholders. So I think that's a very interesting bridge to the presentation because we have done research within this topic and Magnus and Esmee can tell you as the audience a little bit more on how you maybe can professionalize your stakeholder inclusion processes. So with that, I would like to introduce Magnus and Esmee. First of all, Magnus Skoor, Manager Risk and Internal Audit at Deloitte, and Esmee Pastoors, Sustainability Reporting Consultant at NN Group. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. So yes, we have the honor to talk you through the key insights from our white paper. The way that we're going to structure that is we're going to go a bit through the problem statement first. So we're going to talk about the changing stakeholder expectations that organizations face these days. Then we're going to go into the key insights that we got from our research. Then we'll give you a bit of a background on the Societal Council, which has been dropped a few times already, which is supported by our Stakeholder Inclusion Framework, where we operationalize the concept and the different levels of stakeholder inclusion that we see in the market. And finally, we'll be giving you some thoughts on how the framework can be used effectively. So, on that note, let's delve into the evolving landscape of modern business governance. So we're living in a time where the rules of the game are changing. The days when companies could focus solely on short-term financial gains, such as what we saw under the Friedman Doctrine of the 80s and 90s, are fading fast. Today, a new set of expectations is emerging, reshaping how businesses operate and define their success. And what we see more and more is a world where every decision a company makes is challenged, not just by its board members or its shareholders, but by a diverse set of voices. That can be consumers, employees, local communities, regulators. And these stakeholders are no longer just passive observers. They're active participants, demanding that businesses take a stand on social responsibility. It's not just about profit margins anymore. It's about making a positive impact on society and the environment. We're witnessing a shift driven by stakeholders who are insisting on transparency and accountability. They're asking companies to go beyond the bottom line and demonstrate a genuine commitment to sustainable practices. The shift is not just a trend, but it's a fundamental change in how businesses are perceived and evaluated. But what happens if companies choose to ignore these calls for change? The risks are significant. Companies that fail to adapt could face legal challenges, they could lose their competitive advantage, or even find it difficult to attract and retain talented employees who think that working for socially responsible employers is one of the key factors based on which they look for a job. And then there's the regulatory landscape to consider. There's new EU regulations, such as the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD, and the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or CSDDD, and they're reshaping the business environment. These regulations are more than just legal requirements. They're also a catalyst for change, urging companies to embrace transparency and sustainability. These directives are not there just to stifle business, but to guide them towards practices that benefit everyone in the long run. However, many companies struggle with how to integrate these sustainable practices into their existing governance structures. It's not an easy transition, and it requires rethinking the traditional models that have been in place for decades. This is where innovation in governance comes in, allowing companies to navigate these challenges and reposition themselves for long-term success. So in conclusion, the forces pushing for organizational change are powerful and they're unavoidable. Companies that recognize and adapt to these forces will not only comply with new regulations, but also position themselves as leaders in a future that values sustainability and social responsibility. Embracing these changes is not just a necessity, it's an opportunity to redefine what success looks like in the modern business context. Now, to dig into this, we have spoken to a broad set of experts, practitioners, and business leaders, as well as done an in-depth study on literature. As we embarked on this research journey, we aim to understand how businesses can better integrate stakeholder voices into their decision-making processes. Our exploration led us through an extensive literature review, and we had some insightful discussions with many thought leaders. What emerged was a clear picture of the steps needed to enhance stakeholder inclusion. So firstly, businesses today have to broaden their perspective. The traditional focus was often limited to shareholders and the immediate financial outcomes. However, the modern approach calls for a much wider lens. Companies need to embrace a diverse array of stakeholders. This includes employees, local communities, nature, even future generations who will inherit the outcomes of today's decisions. One major insight is the necessity for integrating these diverse voices into the core of business models. It's not just a matter of adding more chairs around the table. It's about ensuring that these voices are heard, valued, and incorporated into strategic planning, such as is done with the Future Generations Board at ABN. And this integration not only supports the sustainability of the business model, but also its resilience in the face of changing market dynamics and societal expectations. However, this broad inclusion faces some hurdles. One challenge is overcoming resistance that we see within the corporate sector. Many organizations are anchored within their traditional models and resistant to change due to a lack of regulatory pressure, or simply because we've always done it this way. This resistance is a pretty serious barrier, but it can be overcome. Now, another insight is the art of selecting the right stakeholders. Proper selection is not just about a tick-the-box exercise for diversity. It's about ensuring a genuine representation of a value chain. This requires deep processes to identify the stakeholders who can contribute meaningful perspectives and insights. Another insight is that thinking about stakeholder inclusion can build resilience against regulatory changes. Companies that proactively adopt sustainable practices can better withstand the waves of regulatory shifts. By integrating these practices early, businesses not only comply with current regulations, but also prepare themselves for future mandates. Fortunately, there are supportive regulations like the Dutch Corporate Governance Code. And these regulations emphasize the importance of sustainable, long-term value creation and encourage meaningful stakeholder dialogue. They provide a supportive framework for companies looking to embed these values into their operations. The path forward involves embracing stakeholder inclusion as a core component of business strategy. By doing so, companies can navigate the complexities of modern governance and position themselves for success in a world that increasingly values inclusivity and sustainability. Now, what does this actually look like? So as you will find in the white paper, which has been launched today, we propose the implementation of a societal council to address these issues. So let's explore this concept. A societal council is an innovative approach in corporate governance that champions stakeholder engagement at its core. So, imagine a council that is woven into a company's corporate governance structure, acting as a bridge between the company and the outside world. This societal council is not just another advisory body. It's a transformative tool for integrating stakeholder perspectives into the heart of strategic decision-making. At its core, it's designed to ensure that a wide range of voices is heard and considered. It includes representatives from both internal and external stakeholders, such as employees, unions, shareholders, suppliers, but also external, so local communities, regulators, NGOs, and also voices that often go unheard, such as those represented in climate and future generations. Now, this diverse representation is key for getting a holistic view of the business landscape and the area that a business operates in. The role of the council is multifaceted. So it advises, for example, on strategy setting, on key decisions, and the annual reporting process, amongst other topics. And by doing so, it ensures that the company's strategy is not only profit-driven, but also aligned with societal expectations and sustainability goals. This alignment helps with building trust and encourages collaboration and foster innovation, along with supporting the purpose agenda that many companies already have in place. The inclusion of diverse perspectives helps companies navigate complex challenges and look at opportunities for growth and improvement. By bridging the gap between corporate leadership and broader societal needs, companies can build a reputation for being forward-thinking and responsible. They also play a critical role in fostering collaboration. By bringing together stakeholders with different viewpoints, there's a space for dialogue and mutual understanding. And such a collaborative environment can be very valuable for innovation, as it encourages the sharing of ideas and co-creation of solutions that benefits all parties. Moreover, the Societal Council can become a testament to a company's commitment to embedding sustainability into their company DNA. And it's not just about ticking boxes for compliance, it's about really believing that giving everybody who is a part of your value chain a voice in your decision-making processes. It's vital for long-term success, and it provides resilience. So the Societal Council, in our view, represents an innovative way in corporate governance. It's an opportunity for businesses to lead by example, demonstrating that profitability and purpose can go hand in hand. By embracing this model, companies can ensure that they are not just surviving, but thriving in a future that demands accountability, transparency, and a genuine commitment to social expectations. Now I'm happy to hand over to Esmee, who will take you through our Stakeholder Inclusion Framework.
Yes.
Oh, it's this one. Yes.
Thank you, Magnus. What you see on the screen is the Stakeholder Inclusion Framework. And this framework is a basis to implement the Societal Council within your organization. So what you see on the left side is that it starts with initial engagement. And what you also saw in the poll earlier is that a lot of companies start with not to say unstructured conversations, but it's not a structure or in their governance of company. And then if you move to the right, you see that it gradually moves to a more formal way of including your stakeholders within your decision-making processes and eventually within your governance. This framework is in the white paper, of course, with a lot of more details. What we show there is that there's different characteristics to include per level of the framework. And as a basis, what we try to also put in this white paper is to show that every organization is not a one-size-fits-all process, so to say, that really to start with assessing where in this current framework are you positioned yourself. And that is the maturity assessment, how we call it. So really see, is it for now, for example, really focus on initial engagement. We have some conversations, some voices are heard. But we want to go to that next stage and really see what is needed in order for it to be more formalized within your governance structure. And that is also highlighted again within the white paper. So below you see different factors that you could think of these different levels. Also, what we really want to address is the fact that companies should experiment. It's not, we have done a lot of research over the past year. We've spoken to a lot of experts, but in general, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It really should be looking at your own company, looking at your own business model, and really see what is fitting for our company. It could be, for example, that your business model is very complex or it's very mature already. And then, for example, a more formalized approach would work better. So this is really to emphasize that we want to stress you to really experiment with different characteristics and also see what works and what does not work. So if you want to tailor this to your own organization, there's different things to look for. For example, the size. If your company is bigger, it can be a necessity actually to have a more formalized approach. So even though you now have initial engagement, really see how can we have a more structured approach towards our engagement with stakeholders so that they are better included within several layers, for example, of the organization. Also, if you have a more complex governance model, it can be that it's more beneficial, for example, to have a more structured approach. Because if you have more structure towards addressing your stakeholder interests or challenges or concerns, this benefits eventually that the word of those stakeholders is included within your decision-making processes. Also, it can be that you, for example, have some councils already in place consisting of internal experts, for example, Works Council or a Sustainability Council even. There we see that where we come to later, there's also some challenges with that, but really see how can we also give the external stakeholders, so to say, a voice, or the unheard voices a voice. So that's also something to consider, how it can be placed next to the current councils within your organization. Finally, that's also stressed within our white paper. You are the expert of your own organization. So you know best what type of stakeholders should be included. In general, you can look for the most straightforward ones, but really also please try experimenting with that. See what voices are usually unheard, so to say, the rights holders. So really try to also put them into practice in terms of experimenting with different stakeholders. Then we have some key considerations and challenges that we came up with during our research. And the first one that was also raised by a lot of experts was that it's really needed to define clear roles and responsibilities for your societal council in order to work. So this can be that you give it a mandate. For example, they have more of an advisory role, or they really have a voice within decision making. So you should actually take their voices that they have, for example, the same mandate as another board of director or another council. So it's really, you should try to also, again, leading also to the experimentation. It is an improvement. It is something that you should try, test it maybe with an internal, maybe put some employees on the same table and everyone represents a different stakeholder, for example, and really see how does that work, how can we improve the conversation, but also how can we improve our inclusive network of stakeholders in our council. So this is something that try to also experiment with the type of mandate that you give the council. Then eventually, in order for the council to be successful, it does need to be incorporated within the strategy and within the governance. C-level managers should be given a place here also within the council, and there should be collaboration between the council and C-level management in order for it to be successful and also to give it more a more structured approach again, but also really to give it a voice, the council. It should really try to also prevent or avoid confusion with other councils or other committees in place. So therefore, if you start with defining the roles, seeing how you can adjust that, and then put it in your governance approach, it has a clear role within your organization. Finally, that is also something what we mentioned with the C-level management involvement, really build trust and positive engagement. It is not, the council is there to really help you to create long-term value. It is not there to challenge you with everything you say. It's really there to help eventually create a better world for all of us, long-term value for your company. So really try to focus on relationship management as well to create a positive type of engagement. So that is basically what is all in the white paper. So again, really read the white paper. This is a really fast summary of everything that is in there. But we want to conclude really with stakeholder engagement is something that should be more structured in order for long-term value creation. And currently, and that's also why we have Rafaela at the table today, that some voices are not heard and should be addressed. So that is something that we highlighted within this white paper, and I think we're very proud to present it finally today. So thank you. Over to you again.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing already a preview of our findings today with the audience. And I think indeed the conclusion is very clear based on our research. There are various reasons that show the essence for stakeholder inclusion. And yeah, we believe, and also our research shows, that the Societal Council can really contribute to that and professionalize that conversation. And as May mentioned, there are many different forms to do that. So there's no one size fits all. So I really love your recommendation to just start experimenting and see what works best for your organization and the organizational culture. Again, thank you. Well, that about the research, but we also have the experts on the table today. So I'm very curious to learn more about your thoughts on these topics. So first of all, Herman, you are our expert on stakeholder inclusion and societal councils. Looking at our white paper and also the model, the Stakeholder Inclusion Framework that was just shared with the presentation, how do you think that can be of added values for organizations?
Well, thank you very much, Sandra and Esmee and Magnus. First of all, a good idea needs its moment and also a messenger. And I can only congratulate you that the team that this report was written right now. Messenger is credible because you all are future board members. Secondly, the idea is just waiting to be marketed. It's a logic consequence of the DMA, of the CSR and CSTTT. And the timing is perfect. And I think you putting the white paper right now on the table is a very important contribution to the whole discussion about how to build better long-term business and also increase the business resilience. So I can only say this is a wonderful report. It's comprehensive, it's rich, it's practical, and I would recommend everyone to read the report and also to follow the ideas in the inclusion framework. I would say that it would be a pity if the white paper is put in a drawer. I would really hope, and I would say noblesse oblige for anyone who has been involved in the preparation of the report, but also those who are attending, take it to heart and put it into practice. And I think that's pretty important because the moment we are right now is a very important inflection point. CSRD we have gold in our hand. There's a lot of criticism about the implementation of CSRD, and yes, we all know it's difficult, but sometimes I compare it with learning to swim. It's the first time you have to put your head under water is a challenge for any child. And after 2 lessons, when you dare to do it, you are going to float, which is also difficult. But after 4 lessons, you understand what it is all about. And then you start going for your A, B, and C diploma, maybe even go to the Olympics. I think CSRD is precisely that. We have to go through a difficult period. But once we have the data and the processes and the controls in place, then we start thinking about the opportunities which it offers, both in terms of responsibility, accountability, but also in terms of competitiveness. So I'm really heartened by this report, and I really hope that it is going to be put into practice.
We hope so too. Thank you, and thanks for the compliments. That means a lot to us. Rafaela, you are a member of the Future Generations Board at ABN AMRO. So that is a form of a societal council, as we just described it. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Future Generations Board, how it is organized, what is the function, etc.?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the invite. I'm really proud to be the face of the Future Generations Board in ABN AMRO. Yes, so our board, that is Future Generations Board, focuses on advocates for future generations in today's decision making. So it's kind of a hard task, you may imagine, because we have conflicting arguments within any organization, within what are we doing today and what are the impacts for the generations of the future. I am personally the stakeholder manager of the Future Generations Board, but there are other 7 members for a total of 8 members, which are all below the age of 35. And we have different roles within the board. So we have a chair, we have a business manager, stakeholder manager, expert leads, and movement builder. stakeholders as well as communication manager. This is needed in order to reach every part of the organization. And also it's nice to see the results of the white paper because I can recognize most of our day-to-day life in the sense that the board has a mandate. In that sense, we have a license to operate within this mandate. We have a vote in the committees that focus on both sustainability and ethics decision-making within the bank. So it's a kind of structured approach that the bank has decided to approach for this societal council. And what else to say? It's really important that we are aligned within the organization and also to represent different silent stakeholders within the board. So it's also make sure that the board has a certain degree of diversity within its composition, which we currently have.
Okay, great to hear. And great to hear this best practice of how critical stakeholder voices are really embedded in strategic decision making. So thanks for sharing your insights on that. Okay, Herman, I was also wondering what your thoughts are on how a societal council can drive real impact and real change within the boardroom. Because of course the concept is very interesting, but how can we make sure that it really pushes the executives beyond their current decision-making processes?
One of our great business philosophers said once, you only see it when you get it. That's what Johan Cruijff said. And I think he points the issue at the heart. Companies have hotspots, sweet spots, and blind spots. And I think what as a former risk manager at AB Rabobank, and as a board member in a number of companies, the most important thing and also as an AI practitioner, the most important thing you need to do is asking the questions and starting to listen. And your scope of listening and engaging must be as wide as possible because we know the sweet spots by heart. We know the hotspots by heart. But there are so many blind spots, and that could be in scope, in time, where you really need to engage with those who have new ideas, different ideas, to bring them into your orbit and say, I want to learn from you. CSRD itself is also a learning experience for all of us. And of course, we will learn a lot about new dimensions of risk and impact. So my perception is that if you create a stakeholder council, you will be getting access to a lot of new ideas. And if you do that in a structured way, the quality of your decision making is going to be much, much better. Even if you disagree with those in the stakeholder council, it adds value because then you know what you do not want to do. And in this era, look at the US where there's a lot of commenting and criticism on us, looking in the broader perspective, the broader value creation. I think we need to sharpen our pencil and be much more specific to what we stand for. And for that, we need other stakeholders to help us understand the ecosystem in which we are operating. It goes from supplies to partnerships. It goes from transactions to relationships. And I think that's exactly where a stakeholder council can make a major contribution to help all of us, as I said before, for better long-term business and better resilience in a volatile and also very transparent world, because you will be exposed, whether you like it or not, by real issues or by fake issues. You need to prepare yourself for that. And that's the day-to-day issue of any board member. So if you have a stakeholder council where you can, on a regular basis, in a trusted environment, exchange your views, I think you will improve your own confidence and the quality of your decisions.
Oh, that sounds great. So the Societal Council can really help executives to listen to other voices and other opinions in order to find the blind spots. Okay, thanks for sharing. Rafaela, in your opinion, what is critical to the success of a future generation board or a similar societal council?
Well, in my experience so far, I think there are different elements that can contribute to the success of the council. First of all, you also touched upon in the white paper is clear roles and responsibilities. Of course, the bigger the organization, the bigger complexity we have. So it's important that we define clearly what is the scope, what are we doing here, and which silent stakeholder we are representing. So in that sense, we clear cut what is the scope of any societal council is important for its success. I would also say another important item is what is value. So align with the organization of one definition of value. What to me, when I think of value, long-term value, I say vision. So what is important to me at least, and also what I notice in my experience within the board, is to align with the organizational values and strategy, but still challenging the status quo, which rises, of course, a balance between share the same strategic vision as an organization, but still raising challenges when needed. Because the only way to raise the voice of silent stakeholders is to make sure that those challenges are aware within the organization. And another concrete example that I feel to share here is a concrete call for action. So, of course, there is a lot of inputs that come within parts of the organization, various stakeholders, various already existing initiatives. So what is important is to collect all these inputs from various parts of the organization and translate into a concrete call for action. What can we actually do to challenge the status quo and make sure that we all thrive towards one vision and long-term value creation?
Okay, very interesting. So a scope, a vision, and a call to action in summary. Okay, sounds good. Thanks for sharing. I do have one final question, actually for the both of you, because I'm very curious if you could share maybe recommendations or tips for organizations that want to get started with the Societal Council. Herman, would you like to give some recommendations?
Well, if there's any criticism I have on the paper, it's maybe the title, because it is talking about enhancing stakeholder inclusion. I think we should be more ambitious. It should be definitely promoting it, which means that we should right now start in our own organizations the discussion as we are working on CSRD and are learning the difficulties and the challenges and the dilemmas we're facing, start immediately looking at, as the report is forward-looking, how can we organize that in a structured way? So I think my first recommendation is clearly go back to your own organization and start the debate and convince your board, convince your lawyers, convince your colleagues that this is the only way to go. Sometimes I say nothing is impossible, particularly when it's inevitable. Well, this is inevitable. The stakeholder inclusion is 5 years from now we say what were we talking about? So take an advance on that future, and that's leadership. So that's number one. The second thing is, and I think that's something which we should do collectively and also through Global Compact, this subject of the Stakeholder Council or the Societal Council in certain cases should be definitely recommended in the next Corporate Governance Code. It should be definitely, I wouldn't say there must be a mandatory requirement. First, like CSRD, working on in the DMA and working with stakeholders, it is a learning exercise. So we are not forcing the issue. What we're doing is promoting the inevitability of structured inclusion of stakeholders in corporate governance. So we should really push the Corporate Governance Code Committee, to say the monitoring committee, please consider this with all the members who are actively involved in it and put it in the code, because then we send a very powerful message that companies who are shy in inviting NGOs or other challengers into your kitchen where you're preparing the meal, invite them in. Don't let them look through the window. No, invite them into the kitchen and prepare the menu together. Because then they will understand the dilemmas we have. They will understand that the board has many priorities amongst which they have to prioritize. So it's also a process of learning each other. So sitting around the table, talking to each other, listening, asking the questions is key. And I think that's why the paper is going to be very, very helpful, led by the young professionals of Global Compact to say, this is the moment we have to get captured because this is inevitable. So start experimenting with it. right now.
Good call to action. Thank you so much. Rafaela, do you have anything to add to that?
So a couple of tips by experience, I would say, as a younger professional. I would say, first of all, it's important to define internally the support of either the executive board or the supervisory board. Once that support is secured, it is way easier to try to reach every part of the organization because it can be a monumental task starting from bottom to top. Second of all, I think it's also important to make sure that a clear effort requirement is asked for the board members. So as a future generations board, for example, it's important that we have a clear request for what is the effort that we require to the board members, because there can be, of course, a trade-off between the interest that one can have in the role within the organization and the role within the board. So that is important to balance. And another tip that I would like to share is, of course, reach out to other boards. So it's a pleasure to see that in the Netherlands, and also aligned by the white paper, we can see so many good examples of what it is already carried out. Just to go out there and reach out. You can reach out to us as Future Generations Board and other realities within the Netherlands that can share actual concrete tips on how to set up a board. And of course, I would say read the white paper, because that is definitely a good starting point of practical setup of a societal council within the organization.
Great. Sounds good. So also a good recommendation to actually share experiences with other initiatives that are already taking place by other organizations. And indeed, as you mentioned, we also collected some case studies and best practices that are already existing within the Netherlands, but also globally. Please take a look at our white paper where you can read all the recommendations, also tips for doing that experimenting internally. You can find the framework there. And again, you can also learn from other organizations and what they are already doing. And with that, first of all, I would like to thank you for your recommendations, your insights, Herman and Rafaela, today. Very much appreciated. Magnus and Esmee, also thank you again for sharing the insights from the white paper. The audience at home or dialing in at work should be able to access the QR code on the screen right now. With that QR code, you can scan the white paper. It can be found on the website of United Nations Global Compact. And we hope it will help you to discover ways of implementing the Societal Council and start experimenting internally with it. I think the results are clear from our white paper. Also looking at what we heard from Rafaela and Herman, there are various reasons, amongst other legislations, that show that it's essential to start including your stakeholders, especially the ones that are not heard yet, in your decision-making processes, in order to be future-proof as an organization and make sure that you create value in the long term as well. We hope the white paper will give you some food for thought during the holidays. And of course, in the new year, we hope to see more and more societal councils being set up in organizations in the Netherlands and globally as well. With that, I would like to thank everyone for dialing in and joining our conversation. We all wish you happy holidays, of course, and all the best for the new year. Thank you.